There will come a morning when you won't wake up. But Thesa, this is not that morning. Today, your eyes opened, your heart is beating, and whether you feel it or not, that is power in your hands. We often roll out of bed and step into chaos. Notifications buzzing, tasks piling, thoughts racing. And in that storm, we forget that each morning is not a punishment, it's a gift, a sacred restart, a moment to begin again. But how do you begin with clarity when the world is shouting noise? How do you find strength when the weight of yesterday still lingers in your bones? Mornings are sacred, own them intentionally. There is a silence in the early morning that the rest of the day cannot offer. Before the world awakens and distractions begin their chase, there's a breath or pause that belongs only to you. That moment, raw and untouched by the noise of the outside world, is sacred. It's where your clarity is forged, where your strength is summoned, and where the tone of your entire day is decided. Most people waste it. They check their phones before they check in with their own soul. They open emails before they open their hearts. They jump into the expectations of others before they acknowledge their own intention. And in doing so, they give the best part of the day, the most powerful, creative, and spiritual window away to the world, before they've even asked themselves who they want to be that day. To live a grounded life, to be resilient in a chaotic world, you must reclaim your mornings, not just as a habit, not just as a productivity hack, but as a ritual, as a sacred ceremony of self-mastery. Mornings are not about how much you get done, they're about aligning yourself with what truly matters before the noise tells you what to chase. In the ancient practice of Stoicism, the morning was seen as a time to prepare for the battle of the day, not in fear, but in strength, to remind oneself of what is in our control and what is not, to rehearse adversity mentally, so it doesn't destroy us emotionally. The Stoics didn't wake up and scroll, they woke up and reflected, and from that reflection came resilience. You must do the same. Begin your day not with reaction, but with reflection. Sit in the quiet. Feel your breath. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not, what do I need to do? But who do I choose to become in the face of whatever today brings? That question alone will change everything, because it moves you from a passive participant in your life to an intentional force. You're no longer being pulled, you are choosing. And when you choose with clarity, the world no longer has the power to shake you so easily. Let the morning be your foundation. If the rest of your day is a house, then your morning is the ground it stands on. Build it with silence, with solitude, with a ritual that anchors you. For one person, it might be journaling. For another, meditation. For another, reading words that awaken the soul and stir the will. It doesn't matter what the practice is, it matters that you return to it every single morning with reverence. Even 5 minutes done with depth is better than an hour of shallow scrolling. Why is the morning so powerful? Because it is the only part of the day that is truly yours. Before demands, before messages, before people need something from you, it is a portal into your inner life here, and when you walk through it with awareness, the rest of the day begins to serve your purpose rather than distract you from it. The greatest mistake we make is believing we'll find time later, that we'll ground ourselves after the meeting, after the kids are off to school, after the rush dies down. But it doesn't. The day doesn't slow for you, it speeds up, and the mind, once hijacked, rarely returns to center on its own. You must meet the day at the gate. Think of your mind like a fortress. In the early morning, the gate is open but unguarded. That's when the world tries to rush in. If you don't post a guard, or if you don't set your intentions, reaffirm your values, strengthen your perspective, then everything else will enter: fear, distraction, urgency, comparison, ego. But if you stand at the gate, fully present, fully awake, with a calm and steady presence, then you choose what enters your fortress. You decide what deserves your energy. That's the power of an intentional morning. Some say they're not morning people, but being a real strength is quiet and grounded. Strength, in its truest form, does not need to announce itself. It does not boast, does not shout, and does not seek validation. Real strength is calm. It is steady. It is rooted like an old tree, still, silent, yet unshakable. In a world obsessed with power that is loud and attention-grabbing, we forget that the most enduring kind of strength often moves unnoticed. It is not forceful, but it is immovable. It doesn't impose, it endures. It bends, but it doesn't break. This kind of strength is not worn like armor, it is lived quietly in the soul. The person who truly possesses strength does not need to prove it. They are not desperate to be heard, understood, or feared. They are at peace within themselves. And that peace you earned through hardship, reflection, and self-discipline is what gives them the ability to remain centered in a world that constantly spins. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that we should focus not on appearing powerful, but on being grounded. That we should not be the wave, but the rock the wave crashes into. The rock doesn't scream, doesn't resist, doesn't panic. It simply stands. We confuse control with strength. We think that if we dominate a situation, if we win every argument, if we never show emotion, then we're strong. But real strength lies in the ability to remain composed even when things don't go our way. It is easy to look strong when life is smooth. But when things fall apart, or when we are tested by loss, betrayal, uncertainty, that is when real strength is revealed. It's not about how high we can rise, but how deeply we can stay rooted when everything tries to pull us apart. Strength is saying no when everyone expects a yes. It is holding your ground when your principles are challenged. It is speaking the truth gently when the crowd demands a lie. It is staying silent when your ego wants to fight. That kind of discipline is rare, but it's also where peace begins, because when you no longer need to perform your strength, you finally start to live it. There is a quiet power in restraint. Anyone can react, but few can pause. Anyone can speak, but few can listen. Anyone can lash out, but few can forgive. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. They're the one who knows their worth without needing it confirmed. They've done the inner work. They've met themselves in the darkness, and because of that, they do not flinch in the light. Real strength does not come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it, and refusing to let it poison you. There is no courage without suffering. There is no groundedness without storms. We grow roots through trials. We gain depth through grief. We become unshakable by walking through uncertainty without losing ourselves. The person who has suffered deeply and still chooses love, patience, and integrity, that is strength in its highest form. This strength is also humble. It doesn't need applause. It's not interested in ego games. It doesn't manipulate or posture. It simply is. When you're grounded, you don't chase approval. You don't need to prove your importance. You operate from purpose, not performance. And because of that, you become dependably not just for others, but for yourself. When chaos erupts around you, people naturally look to the one who is calm. Not because that person has all the answers, but because they aren't adding to the noise. Their steadiness becomes a shelter. Their presence becomes a kind of quiet leadership. Not through dominance, but through example. They show others that it's possible to be in the storm and still carry peace inside. We live in a time when noise is mistaken for truth, and volume is mistaken for confidence. But there is a kind of human being who doesn't play that game. They wake up, align with their values, and live thema whether anyone notices or not. That's the person who lasts. That's the person whose strength outlives the moment. Strength is also found in consistency. Anyone can show up strong once, but to keep showing up, again and again, especially when it's harder, that is real fortitude. It's not grand. It's not glamorous. It's in the mundane decisions, the small acts of discipline, the quiet sacrifices. It's in choosing growth when comfort calls. In choosing to stay kind when the world turns cold. In choosing to be whole instead of being liked. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who've been through things they'll never speak about. They carry wounds that never became excuses. They carry sorrow that never turned into bitterness. Their strength is not a wallow, it's a well. Clarity comes from within, not from control. Clarity is not found in the perfect plan, nor in the flawless execution of your day. It does not come from managing every variable, controlling every outcome, or forcing life into neat little boxes. Clarity is not a product of control, it is the result of alignment. It is born in stillness, not in the struggle to predict or command what happens outside of you. And yet, we often spend our lives chasing clarity through manipulation of time, of people, of circumstances, thinking that if we could just get everything in order, then we would finally feel clear, finally feel calm. But that's not how clarity works. Clarity is an inner light. It's something you return to, not something you capture or possess. In a world that prizes control and certainty, the pursuit of clarity can become a trap. You find yourself obsessing over details, over plans, over what-ifs. You measure yourself against expectations that don't belong to you. You try to master your environment, believing that control will give you peace. But control is fragile. The moment something unexpected happens, and it always does, so the illusion of clarity shatters. You're left anxious, unsure, reactive. And suddenly you realize, the clarity you thought you had was built on external order, not internal truth. True clarity is the opposite of that. It doesn't depend on conditions being ideal. It doesn't vanish when plans change. It lives inside the one who has made peace with uncertainty. The one who no longer seeks to dominate the future, but to meet it as it comes, with awareness, with courage, with presence. Clarity is not about having all the answers. It's about knowing what matters, even when the answers aren't clear. It's about holding steady when nothing outside you is. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that the world is unpredictable, but the mind can be trained. That peace doesn't come from changing the weather, but from learning how to sail through storms. Clarity, then, is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of perspective. It is not perfection, it is perception, sharpened by wisdom and guided by purpose. To develop clarity, you must turn inward. You must quiet the noise, sit with your thoughts, and ask yourself the hard questions. Not what does the world want from me, but what do I value? Not what should I do, but who am I becoming? Not how do I avoid failure, but how do I grow through it? These are the questions that build inner clarity. They are not always comfortable, but they are always necessary. Because without that foundation, you will always be lost to chasing shadows, pleasing others, adjusting yourself to fit expectations that have nothing to do with your truth. Clarity is self-knowledge, and self-knowledge does not come from comparison. It does not come from approval. It comes from sitting in solitude, facing your fears, naming your desires, and accepting your limits. It comes from learning to trust your inner compass more than the opinions of the crowd. When you know yourself, you don't have to control everything, you simply move with intention. You respond instead of react. You act from alignment, not from pressure. There is power in that kind of clarity, because when you stop chasing control, you begin to cultivate presence. And presence is the gateway to wisdom. It allows you to see things as they are, not as you fear or wish them to be. It strips away illusion. It reveals what's real. And from that space, decisions become clearer, not because life is easy, but because you are anchored. People often think clarity is about knowing what to do next. But most of the time, clarity is about knowing what not to do, what not to chase, what not to carry, what not to believe. It's about letting go of the noise that clouds your judgment. It's about recognizing the difference between urgency and importance. It's about slowing down, so you can listen to the voice beneath the fear, the voice beneath the ego, the voice of your own inner wisdom. You can't hear that voice when you're rushing, when your day is ruled by reaction, by the endless stream of tasks and alerts and opinions. That voice gets drowned out. That's why clarity requires stillness. Even a few minutes of it. A few moments of intentional breath, of reflection, of disconnection from the world and reconnection to yourself. In those moments, you remember who you are. You remember what matters. And in that remembering, you find your direction, and not from control, but from centered awareness. When you look at the people who radiate clarity, they all have something in common. It's not that they've figured everything out. It's that they've learned to stay true to themselves regardless of what's happening around them. They make decisions from principle, not from panic. They move slowly when the world is rushing. They are not seduced by trends or popularity. They are not driven by fear. They are guided by an inner compass, calm, sure, and steady. This is what clarity gives you. the ability to move through life with integrity, to say yes only when your heart is in it, to say no without guilt, to choose your battles, to know what is yours to carry and what belongs to others, to release the need to be right, and instead focus on being real. This kind of clarity is not easier, but it is liberating. It frees you from the exhausting game of control and invites you into the quiet confidence of self-trust. We all have moments of clarity, moments when the fog lifts and we see clearly what we want, what we fear, what we've been avoiding. But to live with clarity, you must build it. You must protect it. You must return to it daily, like a sacred practice, because the world will always try to pull you away from it, with distraction, with urgency, with doubt. But the more you return to yourself, the more immune you become to that pull. You stop needing everything outside you to make sense because you've made sense of what's within. Let go of the idea that clarity means having no confusion. Confusion is part of being human. But even in confusion, there can be clarity. You can be uncertain about the outcome and still be clear on your next step. You can be unsure of the future and still be grounded in your values. You can feel fear and still act with courage. That's the paradox. Clarity is not the absence of difficulty, it is the strength to stay centered within it. So much of our suffering comes from the belief that we need to control our lives to feel safe. But safety is not found in control, it is found in clarity. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you don't need everything to go your way. You simply need to stay rooted. When the winds of life blow hard, you bend, but you do not break, because you are clear, not about the world, but about yourself. And that is more than enough. So tomorrow, when you wake up, don't rush, breathe. Feel the air in your lungs. Feel your feet against the earth. Remind yourself that today is not an accident. You are here, and that means your life still has work to do. Good work. Meaningful work. Begin your day like the calm before a storm, with eyes wide open, with a spine made of resolve, with a heart grounded in truth. Because life will challenge you, it will provoke you, it will shake you. But if you begin each day with clarity, a broken bar, and if you meet that day with strength, a broken bar, then nothing or nothing can break you.